So my interest in Bourdieu started relatively early when I was an undergrad. I came into university particularly interested in the media, so I was very excited by a lot of postmodern theory when I first started, like Baudrillard and you know, Foucault and these other kind of things. But then when I discovered Bourdieu, I actually felt like the writing was almost writing to me. And this is a pretty common experience about that working class academics experience around the world. And there's actually an increasing amount of writing about this, where they read Bourdieu, the concepts, the research that him and his team did seem to kind of shed light on people's own experiences about their own kind of backgrounds and the way they've experienced, you know, being working class kids and all that kind of thing. So that's initially how my interest was sparked in Bourdieu. The concepts seemed to be very real to me. I could just see them out in the world. So then I kind of delved more deeper into it, and particularly as my interest in class inequalities developed, I delved more and more. I'm particularly interested in the cultural aspects of how class reproduces. So Bourdieu is obviously very useful for that. So class is obviously a material and economic category where, you know, it's about how much stuff you have, the house you own, how much money in the bank. But I'm particularly interested in as how there's hierarchies within cultures, how different norms and tastes and values and ethics seem to look a lot like middle class values and ethics and tastes, and how that means the culture itself is a part of the class system and reinforces inequalities, reinforces what's normal, reinforces how people feel, because if you're in a situation where what you think and what you like and what you do isn't seen as normal or legitimate, it's a form of exclusion. So concepts like cultural capital in particular and symbolic violence I found were really useful for thinking about those things. The usage of Bourdieu in sociology tends to focus on the notions of habitus and field and cultural capital. More recently I've been much more interested in other underutilised concepts that he uses, particularly symbolic violence and the notion of illusio, which is about how we are embedded in the world that's, you know, very existential. We need to create our own meanings for life to be meaningful. Bourdieu's notion of illusio kind of gets us to help us to think about why we invest ourselves in certain things. Once we invest ourselves in, say, wanting to be a lawyer, we'll invest ourselves in that in terms of study. Once you make those investments, it becomes much more serious, right? You're invested in it, it becomes who you are and what you want to be. And Bourdieu calls that social gravity, the way that we're attracted to things, but once we're invested in them, they become serious in terms of that other sense of gravity. So I think those concepts are really interesting to think about, the way that people make choices, in inverted commas there, and the way that our backgrounds kind of impel us towards some things and maybe repel us, to kind of keep that kind of gravity metaphor going in terms of the way that we invest ourselves in what we think is important, what we think is cool, what we think is tasteful, what we think is moral.